Good morning to Australia and the west coast of North America. Good afternoon to the people in central North America like myself and Nikki, my co-host here. And good evening to the people joining us from Europe like Jay, who's on our panel. I'm joined today by my assistant, Nicole. And Nicole is going to be running the show. It was actually Nicole that set this thing up. And a lot of the guests wouldn't have been here if it weren't for her, because I wouldn't have invited them. I didn't think that it like James Rigney. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning in Australia or whatever. So how you doing, Nicole? I guess you're pretty excited about this happening here? I
am. And actually, I have to thank James Fox because I've been excited since last spring. He gave me a sneak peek and I've been waiting to have this discussion ever since. So thank you everybody for joining us today, no matter the time of day. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us on Facebook Live. And I'm letting Melinda in the room right now. So we are fully loaded, ready to go.
Yep, but okay, Grant.
Oh, Grant.
Oh, your son is there, Will.
It's powered by just a couple of stuff.
Wow. Excellent.
That's Will, who is just turned 5 years old. He's the official chief scientist and inventor for White House UFO. He's a big inventor guy. And sooner or later, we're going to do an interview with him, and he's going to go through his inventions, and we'll put it on YouTube. So how you doing, Will? Thanks for coming. Just to update people, Nikki's going to run the thing, and it's going to be like a moderating a presidential debate, or almost like Hollywood Squares, a giant Hollywood Squares. We have quite a few guests. Our main guest that we got in today is James Fox, and we're going to go through the documentary that he's just released, The Phenomenon. And I should read the rules first of all, because we always have people who may not have been on Zoom. We have people joining us on Facebook Live, but the people that are on the Zoom broadcast is a come and go. So if you've got to go, don't be afraid to come and go whenever you want. If you have to go to the bathroom, just turn off, make sure your mic is off, because if your wife or husband comes in and tells you to quit watching the UFO stuff, everybody's going to see it. We don't require you to wear a mask, but we do require that if you want to interact, and that's the way we'll work it, is there's a thing for putting your hand up on the to request permission to talk, and Nikki will move from one person to another, and we're going to basically start with the introductions here. And while I'm doing that, Nikki's going to do some shares of the link. So we're joined today by the following guests: Tom from MUFON, Tom Whitmore. How you doing, Tom?
Good.
Thanks for joining us. And
thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Beautiful. And we also have the sort of the expert on abductions, McNabb. And the only person, I always point out, the only person that's actually talking to Jim Semivan, sort of on the record, and that's Melinda Leslie. And from, how you doing, Melinda? Are you there? You ready to go?
Melinda, don't be bashful.
She's muted.
She's muted, okay.
Don't be bashful.
The next person we have is the sort of the head of UFO disclosure in Canada, who is Victor Viggiani, who runs Z-Line Communications and also is co-hosting a radio show in Canada. And I'm sure we're going to be doing Disclosure Day, so I'm sure he's got some input from this. How you doing, Victor?
You got two bashful people in a row.
All right. Maybe we should just go through. I'll just go through, and we'll when you want to talk, then you can open your mic. We also have, and everybody thought this was Joe Biden. Today we have Joe Buchman, who's also run for political office on the UFO issue from Utah, and he was the moderator of the citizens hearing in 2013, and has done extensive work on testimonies from various disclosure witnesses.
Hey, Grant. Just proving I can talk.
Good. There you go. And just for the record, Joe Biden in 2008 was asked the UFO question about disclosure, after a presidential debate, and he was not very positive about UFOs, but that was 2008. Maybe he's changed his mind. Bob McGuire, is Bob McGuire here?
You know, he is not.
He's not.
No,
Okay,
Bob
Bob
McGuire.
McGuire may join us. He's our science
Bob
guy.
sent me the thing saying he would be late.
Okay.
Earlier conference was running late.
Okay.
That he tried to join midstream. And
And-
Don Schmidt was here but went away.
And Bob, of interest to me, he worked at the Institute for Defense Analysis, which is the top military think tank for the U.S. for many years. And I wrote a book on Dr. Eric Walker and his involvement in UFOs, and he was the chairman of the Institute for Defense Analysis. So I'm always interested to hear what Bob's got to say, because he was on the inside in terms of the big secrets that were being held in the United States. From England, we have Jay joining us. He has Project Unity, and he's done a lot of work on the Wilson leak and all the latest material that's coming out with regards to disclosure and that sort of thing. So I welcome Jay. And this time he at least is not the guy that's here at 2 o'clock in the morning. Usually he's has to appear at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 7 o'clock there. So he'll be a lot brighter than he was.
Yeah, it's James Rigney's turn to do that. I'm feeling ready, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Beautiful. And Danny Silva, I call him one of the young gun guys who has Silva record, who has done a lot of major articles on the latest UFO disclosure material, and he's been on Coast to Coast. So welcome, Danny.
Thank you, Grant.
And a longtime friend of mine, Peter Robbins, is here live from New York. And he's an expert. He did some study on the death of James Forrestal, the Secretary of Defense. He worked with Bud Hopkins. He did a book on Rendlesham. He knows about the Rendlesham Forest case. And of interest that maybe people don't know, Peter Robbins was with me in Pennsylvania at a cabin with the guy whose name he's being called Tyler D. So Peter was with me, and he's actually met Tyler D., who, if you look at American Cosmic, is the main figure in that book. So welcome, Peter. It's been a long time.
Yeah, Grant, too long. Good to see you.
Beautiful. And is Don Schmidt here?
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Yay!
Well,
Where's Don?
James Fox's latest documentary that we're going to be talking about in a minute here deals with the Roswell case, and Don Schmidt is one of the top Roswell reporters of all times. He's, as I always say, he's sold 50 million books on the subject, and he's here joining us from Wisconsin, and we really appreciate him taking time from his busy schedule to join us.
Where is he?
Yeah, where are you, Don?
And does he have a suit on? That's what everybody wants to know.
I know.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
He has a shirt and tie.
He sleeps with his suit on.
I
I don't see-
I'm guessing
don't see
maybe
Don's
his
image.
feed dropped. I don't see his image either.
Yeah, he was here briefly and he was wearing a suit and tie, which is why I was going to give him a hard time over my Route 66 shirt.
Obviously, he's been cut off by the NSA or the aliens. Take your pick.
I'll try to find him again.
Okay, and we're really honored. After last night, Donald Trump went on Fox News, and right after Donald Trump is our next guest, who's James Fox, who has a new documentary called The Phenomena. I have seen it. It is absolutely spectacular. It fits into my theory of wow. As I was going through it, I'm going like, wow, because that I have a theory of what's going on. And it goes through UFO history, major stories. It has a lot of material in the documentary that is rare footage, and he cleaned it up as he told us as he was coming in here. Fantastic documentary. We're going to show the trailer, and then we're going to open it up for questions for James Fox. So welcome, James. We're glad you could make it today.
I'm a pleasure to be on with you guys.
Yeah. And the next guy is a guy whose name appears in the credits quite a few times on James Fox's documentary. It's a friend of mine from Australia who sort of created a tough, not a tough time, but a very interesting time in my life. When he gave me 4 documents from the Edgar Mitchell collection, and the one has become kind of famous. It's the Wilson leak document. And James is joining us in the middle of the morning from Australia. And I really welcome him to our broadcast here.
Oi.
Ground. Thanks for that. Hi, everyone.
Beautiful.
Great to be here, but it's 5 a.m, so I may be
Yikes.
a bit incoherent.
Friday morning. Wait a minute. It's not Saturday morning or Sunday? No.
Sunday morning.
Sorry?
I don't know what day it is. So I think it's 5 a.m. Sunday morning.
Where were you last night at 2 a.m.?
And our last two guests.
On board.
Yeah.
Our last two guests.
Actually watching the phenomena, James.
Oh.
Well,
And
can
our
I?
last two guests are
Sorry.
from Canada. I have two film people from Canada. There's a new documentary coming out in Canada. I'm going to show you the trailer after we're sort of in the latter part of this broadcast. And one is Rob Freeman, who I believe is doing the most important research in the paranormal field, and that is the blindfold stuff with Wendy
Oh.
Gallant. And Rob Freeman joins me from London, Ontario, and his film guy is Mark McCann from Toronto. And I'm going to be showing a little video clip at the end. They came to Manitoba, and we did two of the biggest UFO cases in Canada. One that got me started, and the other one was the Falcon Lake case, which we call the Canadian Roswell case. And thanks to Rob Freeman's financing, we actually went in on horseback. I'm going to describe this, and we were actually at the site of this very, very famous case that somebody in the Condon report said, if this case is true, it proves there's people visiting the Earth or something to that effect. So with that, that's our lineup of guests. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. And I'm going to start here by going, and I'm going to take over the screen once I get back to this. I'm going to take over the screen, and we're going to show the, oh, you got to allow me to share screen, Nikki.
Oh,
Go to the my name and then more, and then allow share or something.
Or
Or maybe that's not set up. I think
it doesn't say, there's not a share option
So
to activate.
go to the bottom of the screen. Is there something on the bottom of the screen there for share screen? Is there an up arrow there?
Yes. And it gives it's share my screen though, so.
So Nicole, if you go to participants and then click on Grant's name, I think the settings are there.
Okay. Do, 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 do.
we need some elevator music.
I know.
If it comes down to it, I can put the trailer on my phone and put it up to the webcam.
Yeah,
Right.
get it ready when we have to do that.
Yeah, get ready to do that.
Getting ready.
Okay.
Share, it just says share my screen. Or when I click it. And under your name, there's not an option. I made you a co-host thinking that would maybe give you permission.
Oh, I can share. Okay, I'm sharing now. Hang on.
Okay, you got it.
Okay.
Standing by.
Can everybody see here's my screen coming up here.
Okay.
It says you've started a screen share. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Roger that.
Okay. So here should be the trailer if it works.
Yeah.
Yep, we have ignition. No audio.
No audio though. No audio.
That are not explainable in conventional
Oh, there we go.
facts. That have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
Have we got audio?
Got right up to it.
Yes.
Is this a warning? Is this an attempt to communicate?
I was scared. I was running and playing, and then I saw this maroon color in the sky.
It was not anything from this earth.
He was looking at all of us. Maybe they're trying to communicate.
They were reaching out to us. there is an immense array of unanswered questions and an urgent need to get to the bottom of it.
The public has a right to know.
My gosh, look at this thing. The question is no longer if they are here, but why. What are they doing? What do they want from us? What are their motivations? For over 75 years, there have been sightings in the sky.
The UFO shut down several missile silos in Montana.
Thousands of witnesses worldwide. It had to be a data collection. I'm sure they scanned the warhead.
Just kind of hovering there. Never changed its longitudinal axis. And then it goes poof, and it takes off the side.
And high-level cover-ups.
The government was covering up what happened at Roswell.
Hiding these dark secrets.
I was told there wasn't anything there, when I knew there was.
People need to know there is something else out there.
Yes, there had been visitation, crashed craft, material recovered.
Shouldn't we be spending some money to study all these phenomena?
I knew this was breaking news for the front page of the New York Times.
They were trying to communicate, trying to tell us something.
Now it's time to tell people about it. These things are real. They're here. This is happening now.
Woo! I gotta see that one. Jesus.
Okay.
I almost fell off my chair.
So tell us a bit about it, James, and about the how did the rollout take? Because you spent years trying to get this thing out. So to give us a little bit of background on how it got out and what the reaction of the people is and stuff like that.
Well, first of all, thank you, by the way, for having me on. One thing I'd like to say to all of the UFO community, which I consider myself a part of, people that have participated greatly, people like Don Schmidt and Kevin Randall, researchers in Australia that I interviewed, have all said, you know, I didn't make the final cut. And I want to make it abundantly clear that I didn't cut anyone out intentionally. It wasn't like we literally finished, because we edited the film in segments. We did segments in Australia, segments in Africa, segments in, you know, the Socorro case in South America, China. We ended up with a film that was like close to 4 hours long when we stitched it together, and we just had to keep cutting it down and cutting it down and cutting it down. And I remember we had the distinct privilege of working with Jacques Vallée, and he would come to these marathon edit sessions in this little shack at the end of a dirt road in the town where I live. And we just called it kind of killing our darlings. I mean, we had to get brutal about it and whittle the film down to a viewable, you know, I got it down to about 2 hours and 10 minutes. I had a screening of about 250 people, a private screening. And I could see people fidgeting about an hour and a half in, you know, looking at their watches, getting up, going to the bathroom. And I knew that it was too long, again, still. So we had to cut it down to about 90 minutes, maybe 93 minutes, something like that. It's longer with the credits in the end. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to cut this researcher out because I didn't like what they have to say or I don't like who they are. I really need people to understand that it was that brutal. It came down to a fact of we need to put the film first and the phenomenon first and do what's best for the film. And so hopefully the credits at the end of the film reflect that, because the people that participated in any capacity, I did everything I could possibly do to make sure they get included in the credits. And I used to wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. going, oh my gosh, how could I possibly have forgotten about this person? And I still didn't get everybody in the credits, I'm sure. So I just wanted to make that statement abundantly clear. Right away, because I've been getting some comments from different threads on social media, and I just wanted to make that clear. And we truly appreciate this is a group effort. It takes a village, and the film's success is all of our success, quite honestly. And yeah, so that's that thing. And then in terms of, you know, getting the film finally done, I mean, look, I started the film in 2000 we were filming in 2014, concept in 2013. We actually started filming in 2014, and we were getting close to having the film done, I think 3 years ago, kind of. And then the front page of the New York Times that story broke about ATIP, and we were like, we have to include this. So I think that added a couple of years of production time, and then the ink dries on the contracts for a major theatrical release in roughly 1,500 theaters across the United States, and then Corona hit. So, you know, it, what a roller coaster of a ride. We had to pivot. We had all kinds of problems with our distribution. Anyway, we got it worked out finally, and I'm just tremendously relieved that the film is finally out.
I can echo those sentiments, James. I spent 12 hours over 2 days, 6 hours each day with the Discovery Channel up here in Canada. And I was sequestered in a studio for 6 hours each day. And I'm not sure exactly when whatever I did or contributed to this particular production is going to come out, or even if it's going to come out. But I've been told that I'll be lucky to get 4 minutes out of those 12 hours.
Yeah, well, sorry, go ahead.
It's the nature of the beast. If you're a quality documentary filmmaker or doing a quality television production, you're always going to end up with reams more very usable footage than you can possibly add. And then you go through the trials and tribulations that you're describing, James. The wonderful documentary that I was proud to be an associate producer in came out about 5 years ago, Travis, the true story of Travis Walton. The filmmaker, Jennifer Stein, ended up with, like you, so much more workable footage that wasn't able to be included in a 90-minute feature that we are this summer beginning with the second half of it, picking up where it left off and incorporating all of these new breaking materials into it. So bravo for doing the wonderful job that you've done. It's superhuman, and it's rough work, partly because of the emotional decision-making as well as the quality control. You want it all to be where it came out. So way to go, James.
Thank you, Peter. You know, there's a moment when I remember in the timeline putting together this section that was probably took me 6 months to edit, and then probably about a year to film, and it had to go. And I had to close, I'm not kidding you, I had to close my eyes, take a deep breath, and then hit the delete button. And it was like, oh, oh.
It's like part of you died.
It was like somebody punched me right in the solar plexus, and I was just gutted right there on the spot. And my friend looked at me and he goes, "You got to do it, James. You got to do it." It's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
James.
It's called triage.
Yes.
I don't know about everyone else here, but I'm pretty confident when I say we pay you real hard cash money for the volume 2 deleted scenes, 3 hour.
Right. I hear bonus footage.
Okay, so people are already talking about that. Obviously, you know which direction that's headed in, but I literally have PTSD from this film. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I was almost hospitalized from making this movie. There was a time when I thought I was dying. Like, I had pains coming down my neck. I thought I had brain cancer down in my arms. I couldn't walk. I was lying on a medicine ball on my back, and I was with this editor, partner of mine, Lance, and I was directing from on the floor in this little cabin with no bathroom and no sink, no running water. And I'm like looking up at him, and he looks down at me and he goes, "What the hell is wrong with you? You need to go to the doctor. You are in the worst state I've ever seen." I was like, "You gotta get this movie done." He goes, "You can't get it done if you die, you idiot." Like, you know, so I went in and actually went to a chiropractor. I went to see a therapist. I was doing like hot baths. I mean, I'm not kidding you guys. I sound melodramatic, but I'm not exaggerating one bit.
Not at all. Not at all.
It nearly killed me.
Yep.
And then we had curveballs thrown, run out of money. I can't tell you how many times I was begging for more money. It was like, "Well, you said that this amount of money was going to get you across the finishing line." It's like, well, I was wrong. Sorry. You know, I tell you. And you can't, when you're 6 years into a project, there's, you know, you're not going to just give up. I mean, of course you got to get it done, but getting that last hurdle. And then when you get the film done, you still have, they say you're only halfway there when the film is done. Then you got to get all the distribution and marketing packages, all that stuff together. That's incredible. E&O insurance. Do you know what it's like to get E&O insurance on a film with this much archival material? And then the high-level military and government officials that participated that wanted to sign off on the film after they got a chance to see it. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I've got Senator Harry Reid, former Senate Majority Leader, in this film waiting to see it. And I've got a landing case in Africa at the end that he's going to see where the alleged beings got out of this UFO and made, telepathic communication with these children. He's going to run for the hills. I was terrified. I was losing sleep over it. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, I've never dealt with close encounters of the third kind cases before. And I was terrified he was going to say, take my name out of this thing. I don't want to be associated with a film that deals with a landing and these little beings getting out. I mean, it's, so there were so many things going on and so many variables and so many millions away for this film to have failed. It was just an absolute bloody miracle.
If you look at what War and Peace tells us, if War and Peace was brought forward today and brought out by our current editors, it would have landed up being a comic book. And
let's hear. Oh.
That's exactly what I think we're up against with your work, James, because what you've done and all the travails you've gone through in the future, what's going to land up being is you will have made history here. Yeah. That's the fact of the matter. Irrespective of the everything you've gone through, we all have to acknowledge that you have made history. It may not be recognized immediately, but stuff of good quality always. Yeah. Underline the word always 18 times. Comes out, has met that bar in a quantum way. So, the suffering's been difficult, but it's all for a reason, I think.
It does sound a little bit like you shot some of it in Guantanamo under extreme rendition.
There you go. There you go.
Look, I sound melodramatic, but I'm not exaggerating one bit. I literally have PTSD from this film, and people have said, "Oh, what's your next project?" And I go, "Oh, please don't go there. I need to recover right now. I'm in
just leave me alone." Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
James, I want to say, can everyone hear me okay, first off?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, my computer mic's not working, so I'm having to go old school. Oh well. But first off, James, beautiful job. Bravo. Amazing movie. I'm glad to hear you say about cutting everything out and hating doing that and everything, because the one thing when it was done is I wanted it to be longer. I'm like, why only an hour and a half? Why couldn't it be at least an hour and 45 or 2? I think you could have done an hour and 45. I was engrossed. Anyone I know who's watched it was engrossed. But here's the thing. When it was all done and the way it ended with the kids, I thought, okay, this is where in the UFO community, we have to step back and go, this isn't for us. This is for the public. This is for all the people who go on my UFO tours, 8,500 clients. This is for them. And I'm like, okay. Then I realized it was a huge statement in less is more. And so feel good about that. I mean, hopefully you feel great about the whole thing, but feel good about, I realized then it was a huge statement because less is more. It built the evidence, went into the government covering up, and ended with an ultimate stating of contact and why the beings are here, which was the message to the kids. So I applaud you for the storytelling you did in building it that way, and for the greater impact through less is more. I had to ruminate with it, for a while, let it percolate to go, oh my God, that's the statement, and it will hold people's attention. And hey, leaving them wanting more is a great thing, because that's where you can put out all the little shorts of additional stuff and people will go online and watch every single one.
Thank you for saying that, Melinda. And I had a cut that I was pretty happy with when it was 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I've been telling you right now, I had a theater, about 210 people in the theater, maybe 250. And these were not, there were some UFO experienced, UFO people in the audience, but for the most part, it was more our mainstream target audience and who were interested to learn more about it. But I'm telling you, after 90 minutes, they started fidgeting and I was losing them, getting up, going to the bathroom, and every single person in the room said, beautiful film, too long, you have to cut it shorter, period. And that's when, you know, it was brutal. Look, I went to Virginia, Brazil 4 times. I put my heart and soul into chasing down the witnesses for that case, beautifully shot. I mean, not 1 second ended up in the movie. Virginia, Brazil, not one frame ended up in the movie. I went to China twice with Don Schmidt, and 30 seconds in the credits at the end, all across China. Like, you think that was easy for me to have to cut that out? I mean, it was horrible, but it just didn't work. And I tried 50 different variations of getting it to work. And everyone was like, it doesn't work. Sorry, you're holding on to it for no reason other than you're emotionally attached to it because you knew what it took to get. But trust me, it worsens the quality of this film. You have to cut it. And so that's ultimately what it boiled down to. And so I figured less is more.
How does that, James, how does that reflect, as Melinda alluded to earlier, how does that reflect the effort that you made to, I mean, we've all watched it, you know, within the UFO research community, and there will be, you know, hundreds of who have done that. But in terms of how the public, the general public, these people that know nothing, literally know nothing about this issue, what will be the head whip from them? We're going to say, holy smoke, this guy's done this film. How long has this been going on, and why don't I know about it? What will your film do to get those people to understand the head whip and to understand that there's something coming down that you've told them that needs to be understood? How are we going to get to those people?
Well, we're thanks for that question. We are actually getting to those people. You guys can go to the website, and you probably already have. It's thephenomenonfilm.com, and it's updated every day. It's got all the quotes from mainstream. So what's exciting about this project is that not only are we getting requests for screeners from household names, elected officials, people that have made, you know, the films such as classic hits of Back to the Future, but they're willing publicly to put their name on it, which has never happened. I mean, at this level before. It's shocking to me. And I've read a few criticisms online from UFO buffs. They're like, oh, same old rehashed nonsense, you know, or same old rehashed history. I'm going, yeah, but you guys have to understand, first of all, it's not all the same. I managed to get Nash from Nash and Fortenberry, William Nash on camera, thanks to Tom Tullian. That extremely rare. Tell me how many UFO historians have seen footage of William Nash, okay? What about the daughter of Kenneth Arnold? How many times have people seen her on camera? What about the guy that was in the radar room the night of 2 consecutive weekends of Washington, D.C., Al Chop? I mean, those things are extremely rare. Segments that I got from the Truman Library, that were 16 millimeter film footage that we had transferred. That whole segment of historic history in the 50s, all black and white. People haven't seen that stuff. The United Nations stuff that Lee Spiegel organized. Lee Spiegel put that event on. He'd never even seen any footage that we found. So even the UFO historians out there that are well versed in this topic were shocked at all the archival material that we included. So yes, if you're going to cover history, what are you going to do? History is history. I can't change it, but at least we can add new, fresh content, new historical testimony, which we did. And we would sit in the edit room every single day for 3.5 years, and we'd say, where are we going? We're saying, we're on the road to Rua. Look, I know how the general public was going to react. If we didn't build a strong case prior to the landing case in Africa, there's no way in hell anyone would have believed it. If you walk down the street and ask your, Joe Citizen, hey, if a flying saucer landed in Africa and the occupants got out of the school and interacted with 66 or 100 school children telepathically, depicting this message, people would be like, well, what are you smoking? I mean,
smoking, right? Yeah.
And I was aware of that, and I knew what I was up against. So I had to put things in perspective. I had to build the case to get there, because if I transcend the UFO community, which is what our sole objective was, why preach to the choir? Of course, I still want to make something entertaining and fun for all of us. But if I'm going to go beyond that and actually make an impact and make a difference, I had to, get the audience to eat their spinach. So that's what that historical perspective was, to put the recent revelations on the front page of the New York Times in context, right? and build the case for the likelihood of having Joe Public walk out of the theater or walk away from having seen this film and think that event that occurred in 1994 in Rua, Zimbabwe at Ariel School might have just happened. And if we can do that, then we've done our job. And I feel like we've done our job.
Can I ask you a question? I want to ask a question about you. Two of the big interviews you did were John Podesta and Senator Reid. How much of that stuff ended up on the floor, and what was their reaction to the movie when it came out?
Podesta said, I'm so excited. Literally, he emailed me and said, I'm so excited. And let's just say that he requested links for other people that are watching it. So, and not only did Harry Reid, love the movie, but he gave us a quote to use publicly. So he's publicly endorsing the film, which I couldn't believe it. So it's thrilling to watch. It's thrilling to be like, I'm in the passenger seat right now. I mean, we pushed this, bird out of her nest and we're just watching her fly. And it's very, very exciting. And look, I was the primary driving force behind this, but this project took a village. It actually is the culmination of all the work that all of us have done for decades and decades to get here. So this we should tip our hats to each and every one of us that this film is out there and it's in its own world at this point, right?
One of the most important questions that you bring up, James, is what should our role in the research community be at this moment in history? We have spent decades primarily talking to each other and developing an internal dialogue. The disclosure movement is about 20 years old, give or take. I've been thinking about some of these questions for more than twice that time. And one of them is that, as I've gotten more and more involved in this over the decades, is how more and more we think of ourselves as representative. We are ready for disclosure overall. The people who have tuned us in, who study this, who are listening to the documentaries, watching the movies, going to the conferences, reading the books, they've got the mindset. We forget what a modest percentage of the overall national and international population we are. The overwhelming number of people in the world are not ready for this, not at all. And this new documentary is a perfect example of creating something that somebody, a decent person who doesn't think about this stuff, who is busy paying their bills and raising their kids and hoping this pandemic will pass and, whether they'll be able to hold on to their house or their apartment or their job, this is not in their thoughts. And because we all pass through our personal trials, dark nights of the soul, epiphanies, and then come out the other end as sort of initiates, we forget how many people are on the other side. For me, we have to be humanists. We can't get too frustrated. If it weren't for the pandemic, this year alone, with serious government acknowledgements and official pronouncements and agreements by the major world scientific community, this would be a banner year, one of the most extraordinary years since 1947. For those of us that pay attention to this, it still is. But for most people, these things have just shot by. They are appropriately mostly concerned with the pandemic. Obviously, like any of us, I could go on, but just to close with one thought. The pandemic and disclosure are two decidedly different subjects, but is there anything that we can learn from what we're going through with this worldwide pandemic? I think there is. And it hit me, I can tell you, on Wednesday, March 18th. On the weekend of the 14th and 15th, I was in Knoxville with Nick Pope, giving my last out-of-town professional talk. Spoke to my sister, a registered nurse, who basically said, this is what's coming at us the next 3, 6, 12, 36, 48 months. And I got off the phone and I was concerned. When I got home, I shopped like crazy, like Rommel's quartermaster about to invade Egypt, and locked down on March 18th. And that afternoon, I thought, one thing about disclosure, when it really hits, whether they orchestrate it or whether world leaders come together and say, let's make it undeniable, here it is that give or take, at the same moment in time, we can be pretty assured that pretty much everyone in the world is thinking about the same thing at the same moment. And I sat there in my kitchen thinking, good God, this is happening right now all over the world. Savor this moment, think about it in relation to what's going to be coming down on people in the future and people that are not nearly as prepared as you. And you're kind of taken aback with that awareness. And I will shut up now for a little while.
Melinda, you're next. Go ahead.
Oh, Melinda's muted.
Okay. How about James?
Could I jump? Yeah, could I jump in
go
real
ahead.
quick? First of all, I just want to thank you, James, for making this happen. I've watched the film a few times now, and honestly, I do see this as a historical documentary that will serve as a useful tool in furthering kind of like mainstream awareness on the UFO issue. But something I wanted to just touch upon, which Melinda's mentioned, and I think someone else mentioned as well. I've seen the online, the majority of the community who've watched the phenomenon are hugely supportive of it. And, this is directed more to the minority who felt they weren't given anything new, because I've seen this opinion voiced. And I want to just kind of reiterate a point that I've made before. The point being that the UFO community is oversaturated with data and all sorts of theories. And sometimes people do forget, like how what was just said, just how small of a niche the UFO community truly is in comparison to the wider world. And so my point here is just, at least to my perspective, this documentary, the phenomenon, is geared more towards public education. There are fascinating stories and statements in this production that for me personally were like really revelatory, but I look at this from the perspective of an uninitiated mainstream viewer. And from that viewpoint, it is like genuinely a groundbreaking historical overview of one of the best kept secrets of all time. And I think that those within the community who feel that this didn't educate them, they should be happy with the fact that they are already in a position of knowledge, and to see this documentary as a tool that can be utilized to bring others to a similar level of knowledge. So I just wanted to kind of, sorry, my throat's a bit funny, but I just wanted to make
I'm in exactly the way.
I just wanted to, I want to make that clear, because hopefully, a shift in the minority view within the community. I do feel this production is fundamentally important to the the educational progression of this subject in the mainstream. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
I appreciate you recognizing that very, very much, because, people are like, oh, I didn't go far enough. And, look, the overwhelming response has been incredible. And I've been really, really pleased. But, then you get these people, and I'm sitting there going, you have no idea what I've been through. And I am out there fighting the good fight. I'm trying to fight the good fight. And I'm trying to present a body of evidence that could be presented to mainstream to potentially break one of the biggest stories in the history of mankind. And that's not easy to do. And please, at least give me some kudos for my efforts, because I almost died making this. I can't even emphasize enough to you how difficult this was to pull off. And it took a village. It really did. But thank you for recognizing that. I do very much appreciate it. And I went out of my way to throw some new spins on some historical events.
Absolutely. No, you're most welcome, mate. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Thank you.
James, let's hear from Melinda next, and then let's hear from Danny after Melinda. No, Melinda, I can't hear you again.
I've got to go in about 10, 15
on my
minutes.
end.
Guys.
Okay.
I'm seeing. I just muted you.
James, while we're waiting, could I just ask you for a second? I do a radio program up here in Canada. It's called The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett. And Richard has about 45 different affiliates, both in Canada and the United States, through Zoomer Radio here in Canada. It's live on the internet, plus live on radio. And I'd like to formally invite you to participate on some Sunday in the near future to come forward and come on the show, because at any given time, Richard has over 65 to 70,000 listeners just on radio alone. And I'm hoping that at some point within the next month or so that you could join us on the Richard Serrett Show. So I'm going to just invite you to that, and maybe you and I can connect and maybe put that together, because I know Richard would be just absolutely ecstatic about having you come on the radio program with us for about an hour or even more if you wish.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, send me a Facebook message, and then
Sure.
do it through email, and then I pass it through the people that I'm working, so that it
Sure.
doesn't overlap and all that nonsense.
Great, great.
But yes, I'd be delighted to do that.
So do it over Facebook or email? What would you
Email's
suggest?
best.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, James C. Fox.
What would that be?
It's James C. as in Charlie Fox, James C. Fox at Gmail.
Okay.
Melinda, are you back in now? I think, yeah, she's having audio. I did it on my part. It says you're unmuted now. So I didn't know if maybe you wanted to exit and try rejoining, maybe if that would reset your audio, but
I can read her lips pretty well. I could tell what she was saying.
I know she is pretty good at
really
mouthing it to me. Let's hear from Danny Silva.
Okay, never mind.
Hi, James.
Joe, sorry.
The documentary is amazing, James.
Oh, thank you. Is this Joseph?
Just like 30 seconds. I've run for Congress twice, 2008 and 2017. The ridicule on this issue was overwhelming in 2008, somewhat less so in 17. But I want to thank you on behalf of every human being in the United States, especially whoever runs for political office and chooses to address this issue, because you have changed the world such that political candidates can no longer be ridiculed in the way we have been in the past. It's impossible to do in the face of the work that you've done. And I hear you that you have PTSD about it. I have PTSD over running for office. It's not a lot of fun to try to be good in the world. There is an opposition that is incomprehensibly horrifying. And thank you for sending me an early screener. I was so looking forward to seeing the Sonoma Film Festival. UFO Chairman had that party planned. My heart breaks for him. I know he was one of the producers. I am so grateful, but I want to express that gratitude on behalf of every person who chooses to run for political office from now on. You have changed the world.
Well, I really appreciate that. I mean, like I keep saying, this is we're all in this together. So this is really the culmination of all the work from all the researchers. It's one of the reasons why I dedicated the film to Stanton Friedman, because honestly, this film probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the likes of Stanton Friedman and all the researchers out there, that everybody has made a significant contribution in to getting to where we are today.
Okay, Danny Silva, go ahead.
The phenomenon is great, James. Thank you for doing it. And like Jay said, it's a great tool for us to use to bring to the public, and that's all that we can ask for. I was wondering, how did you choose what to include in the film, editing aside? How did you choose what was credible? What stories you thought were credible versus, just noise?
That's a good question. I'm pretty skeptical. I didn't believe the Rua case when I first heard about it, because I just thought there's no way something of that significance with that sheer volume of eyewitness testimony in broad daylight could occur and the whole world not know about it. To me, it just seems so unlikely, But I've learned over the years to sort of suspend judgment and review the evidence and then draw my conclusion, as opposed to having that quick knee-jerk reaction. And so I've learned from my own reaction. And so I knew kind of what I was up against, even as someone who's making documentaries on the topic, if I'm not going to believe it. So what it takes, and again, it's so important for people to understand, like, I'm not out there trying to prophesize and get people to join my cult of believers, not at all. And I don't ever want to come across that way. But I really feel like there's a body of evidence that is so compelling that needs to be shown, it needs to be heard, it needs to be seen. And that was my objective, is like, I have a very methodical way of going about editing in the studio, and it's incredibly time consuming. And the process took about 1.5 years to 2 years. And that is, I go through every single interview from every single person, and I color code and organize them and chronologically assemble it. And it takes bloody forever. And then in the middle of that, I switched platforms from Final Cut Pro to Adobe Premiere. That added about 6 months to the project. But I color coordinate everything in different colors. Green is B-roll. Blue is blue is B-roll. Green is like the start of a story. Pink, and then purple, and then dark purple. and the dark purple, and then I do elevated sequences within the timeline, and that stuff that you end up with is the purple, and then different levels of height within the timeline, and that's the stuff I call the GMs, the golden moments. And then I slowly start to stitch the golden moments together, and I just let everything else fall, right? Because that stuff doesn't, if every single statement you hear doesn't move you profoundly, then it got cut, right? The testimony had to be really compelling. So almost every clip ended up being purple. And there were still lots of purple clips that ended up not being in the film, but I had to cut those out too. But it's a very tedious process. But that's how ultimately I whittle it down to the best of the best.
Do you have go-to sources that you use to make you think a certain case is credible, or you just kind of use your own judgment?
Oh, well, I mean, like for instance, with the landing case in Australia, I mean, look, you know, Paula Harris is the one that pulled me over and introduced me to James Rigney at a conference a few years ago. And of course I had the same reaction at the time, like, oh, really, a UFO landed at a school and the world doesn't know about it, you know? But again, I said to myself, just don't draw too much, you know, criticism initially. Let's hear this out. And when you have a mass sighting in broad daylight like that, it's pretty hard to debunk all those people, right? And so I find those cases particularly compelling, especially if there's photographic evidence connected to it. Not to say that we can say definitively that the photograph that James took of that object a few kilometers away, a day or so prior to that, is connected, but it's highly probable that it would be. But yeah, those are the cases that I find really, really, really compelling.
Thanks.
Oh, sure.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Let's hear from Melinda quickly, and then I think James Rigney, you have to get scooching. So let's hear from you after Melinda.
Perfect. And then I got to go after that.
Okay. Well, I want James to share. I was just saying earlier that I wanted to chime in with what Peter was saying. I was realizing that this morning, and realizing only like 1 in 50 of the clients going on my tour know anything about the current disclosure. And these are people who want to know, who have an interest. And James, thank you for not only the amazing work you've done, but for creating something that I can tell all my clients and possible clients, watch this. This is like the primer before going on my tour, to be able to know now, and that it's definitely made for that greater public. It is not just for ufology. And anyway, so again, thank you for that. I'll stop now and go to James. I just wanted to be sure and share that. There was something else, but it's escaped my mind now. But
thank you, Melinda.
Yeah, James Rigney, I'll give you the time there.
Yeah, hi, thanks for that. James Fox offered me the chance to see a screener maybe 6 months ago, and I refused. I really wanted to see it in a big cinema. I really wanted to feel it and just see the public response. You know, my interest is, this was always going to be a great film. It was always going to be well produced. I'd seen bits and pieces of it. I'd worked on bits of it in Australia with James. My main interest is to what extent this was going to hit the target. And of course, we never got to see that in the cinema. So my main interest, is this going to hit the target? Now, I've been to a lot of lectures and I've walked out and I've gone, that was just incredible. And other people have said, oh, that was so boring, that was so dry. So I realized a long time ago that a lot of people just want entertainment, so there are people who want information and there are people who want entertainment. This film is about information. So I think it will hit the target with a lot of people. And to a lot of others, it just may be too much. It's pretty intense. And are those people ready for it anyway? There is individual cognitive dissonance, and there's also cultural cognitive dissonance. So I wasn't aware, James, that you had a lot of quotes on your website, but I did trawl. I was interested to see how the mainstream, as you are, I think as we all are, the main thing behind this is how is the mainstream going to receive this, and to what extent will it affect the critical mass of the subject matter? And if I may, again, I wasn't aware you had quotes on your website, but I went through there was probably 20 different reviews yesterday from mainstream different mainstream sources. If I can read just a couple of them to you, and this was really encouraging for me. One of them said, if you weren't disturbed by this documentary, you weren't paying attention. And I thought, wow. If you are new to the world of ufology, prepare to have your mind blown away. I can sum this, and these are all different websites. I can sum up this document in one word: incredible. Another one, the phenomena is utterly convincing. Another one said, again, I can sum it up in one word: credible. So when you're seeing those kind of reviews coming out of mainstream, and then you see CNN doing a review, and then you see The Guardian, and it's, you know, there's been a couple of bad reviews, but on the most part, this is already having some impact. Will it be the game changer? Maybe. We're all hoping it will be. The timing is incredible. I think the appetite for this stuff amongst the thinking public, I think, is at an all-time high. So I think we just have to see how it pans out, James. But you know, certainly it's incredible. So well done.
Oh, thank you, James. That's really sweet. I'd let everybody know is that there's an army marching behind us on this one. The machine behind this effort, one of the gentlemen's name is Dan Farah, and he produced Ready Player One with Steven Spielberg, which was a blockbuster hit. And he's been putting his reputation on the line and utilizing his Rolodex and calling all of his contacts and all the people that he's reached out to for screeners have watched it and are willing to publicly put their name on it, which I've never seen before. Usually it's like, oh, I'd like to see it, but I'd like everyone not to know that I am seeing it. Well, this is like I said, I'm a passenger at this point, you know, but the preliminary feedback is incredibly encouraging. The reviews are rolling in so fast, I can't keep up with them. And it seems to be, you know, the algorithm of it is that the more people watch it, the more popular it gets, the more it's put out there. Do you know what I mean? Like we were, I think we're number 2 in the world on the charts in iTunes for documentaries. We were number 38 a couple of days ago worldwide in the charts for all films. And now we're down to like 21 or 22. So let's hope that trend keeps happening. And it's very exciting. Like I said, at this point, I'm just kind of a passenger.
Can I add just one more point, perhaps, that last maybe 2 minutes of the film with the kids, and particularly the pauses at the end and the looks on their faces. On one gentleman contacted me, he said I was crying, but apart from the emotional content, that somehow on some subliminal level to me represented everything about this subject matter. Everything we've invested in this for so long, for me, 7 years, for you guys, 30, 40 years. There was something about that, the looks on those kids' faces and the way you edited and put that together, that just somehow, that said everything to me about where we're at and what we've all been through. So I just wanted to make that comment, and I can't even put my finger on why, but a lot of people are saying something similar. So
listen, let me tell you how that happened. The Rua section was probably the most difficult section. Actually, yeah, Rua and Socorro were two of the trickiest sections. Socorro might have beat that one. That was really hard. We edited probably well over 1,000 hours for 7 minutes, maybe more. It was insanely challenging. But in the middle of doing the Rua section, we had 50 hours of material to whittle down to 7 minutes, 8 minutes. I thought, God, wouldn't it be amazing to take the children, images of the children, contemplative, not saying anything, and take them as adults, their voices, after they've had 20 plus years to process what had gone down and to evaluate and just sort of analyze and articulate better because they're adults now, and put those adult voices under them as children, right? And so I spent probably 5 days or so putting this whole thing together where I took the adult voices and I put them under the images of the children, and it was very powerful. It took a lot of editing. And I thought, well, I don't know exactly where this is going to go, but I'm just going to grab it and copy it and paste it, put it at the end of the timeline, and I'll deal with it later. Well, probably 3 months went by, 3 or 4 months went by, and I'd forgotten about it. And one day I was in the edit room, and the player head was passing over the timeline, and I forgot to press stop. And it got to that section that I'd created months earlier. And accidentally, inadvertently, I deleted all the audio of them as adults underneath them as children, right? So you had the images of them as children, and now suddenly you had no audio. But there was some random song that was playing, and I just looked at it and I went, and I started to cry. And it was so powerful. I knew right then and there, this is it. This is the end of the film. There's no place to go from here. And that's how
Isn't that how we all
happened.
feel? Isn't that how we all feel, James? That just that number.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. So total.
Let's give the last word to Tom Whitmore, and then we'll let the Fox go.
James, I was just wondering, once we get past COVID, are you going to be able to have a distribution deal to have a theater run?
Yes. Yeah.
So the good news is, I don't know if those of you out there know, I don't want to get into it right now, but we had some disagreements and some we had some issues. Okay, when we decided to pivot after COVID hit and we were no longer looking at a successful rollout in theaters, we had some mistakes were made under the cloud of COVID, and I fought back. Anyway, the good news is that I still own the film. I will still own the film, and there are talks of getting into theaters once theaters start getting back up and running, and I will do everything in my power to ensure that takes place.
Good.
And DVD, James?
Well, it's up to the distributors. I'm sure eventually it will be put on DVD. I'll find out about that more. Yes, I will look into that.
James, I certainly hope you get a theater run. I think all the great reviews you're getting, like they were saying, by mainstream sources and the political people behind you, hopefully all that will help you to get into the theaters. I think it would be so powerful in the theaters.
Thank you, guys. And listen, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all your support and enthusiasm and all that each and every one of you do.
Can we do one more with Mark McNabb? I think he was trying to jump in. He's the film producer from Canada. He wants to say something. So Mark, can you jump in?
Mark.
Thanks, Grant. James, first of all, congratulations. I've followed your work back to I Know What I Saw back in 2009. And I just want to commend you just because I can sense in your narrative that you feel, I know that you feel a responsibility to get information out there. And I think the best part of the viewing experience for me was you're leaving it for the next generation. Like you've put it all together. It's been, Rob and I've only been at it for 5 years. And even though we've had the experiences that we've had, I look at a body of work like that and I look at your passion and I can tell how excited you are about it. So I just, filmmaker, I just wanted to commend you on the fact that you have put all your heart and soul into it, and it shows, and it's going to be something that'll be seen for centuries.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that, and I appreciate, as a fellow filmmaker, your appreciation for what it takes to put something like this together. It's like, honestly, what it felt like. You're in the ring with a monster and you got to go 20 rounds and you feel like you're going to die in the first 2 seconds of each round. And all you're trying to do is stay alive, like literally trying to figure out how to survive to the next round. And that's what it was like for 7.5 years.
Very inspiring is what I wanted to really make sure that you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James.
Yeah,
thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, guys.
I'll end your segment by saying next time maybe we can discuss the Jacques Vallée portions of the film and what it's like to have a mentor in Jacques. And I do want to spill the beans. You said you're running off to go hiking. And I got to ask you, are you going to be driving the Zamora white truck to this hiking location?
No, I'm not. No. I know.
No.
Zamora's truck had an oil leak, so it's actually in the shop getting the oil thing fixed.
Well, take care of that. Take care of that piece of history right there.
I do. Yes. I love that truck. Love that truck.
So my only advice to you, James, would be if you're driving, take the car.
Yes. Thanks, you guys. Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks for having me
James.
on.
Talk
Bye.
to you soon.
Thank you.
That was great. Yay, James Fox.
And thank you, Nikki, for bringing him on.
Yes.
I was extremely happy. I still have these fangirl moments in everything that we do, and I'm like, ah.
Good job, Nicole.
Thank you guys, everybody. It was great questions. Good review. I think we could have definitely gone on for another hour, but let's start turning it over to Grant and Mark and Rob Freeman, and let's talk about Canada's Roswell. Unless, does anybody else need to go? This might be a time to skedaddle.
Yeah, I need to pass on. It's the Canadian Thanksgiving up here, and so we're having a couple of families, a couple of members of my family over for dinner. So just want to cut off.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks very much to everyone, and great job. And let's hope we can do this again sometime, and maybe go over some of the more deeper issues, because I think that's where we're going with this, to present stuff to the public.
Happy Thanksgiving, Victor, and great seeing you.
Good stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, Victor.
Bye, Victor.
Beautiful. Now we're going to do a little another documentary coming out here in Canada. So Rob and Mark, you can open your mics. I've got a little 6-minute clip here. This is off my cell phone, so it's going to be like home porn. It's not very high quality. And then I'm going to show the trailer that Mark put together for the documentary coming out here. But both these gentlemen came along with Wendy Gallant into Manitoba, and we toured around to 2 of the big cases. And here's the video that I made of them.
Had to be
something
to do with UFOs.
Hang on, we got the wrong video here. Get the trailer, hang on. Okay. This is, they're looking at film. Here's Mark Freeman's setup. He's got 9 cameras. He brought the cameras along. We set them up numerous nights. Here we are in Falcon Lake, Manitoba, and there's Mark, and we're looking for the Chamber of Commerce to track him down. Falcon Lake is sort of a high-end resort area now. There's $1 million cabins, 2 billionaires living there. And here's the lake, Rob. We set up at the lake there, and it was filmed from these 9 cameras. This is the Stephen McNabb case where we went in. This happened at Falcon Lake in 1967. He had this burn pattern that appeared. It would appear, reappear. A lot of people really don't know that there was metal found at the site, as with a lot of other things. This is actually the Canadians made a coin for this site.
Beautiful.
And this is the coin. It was selling for $125 in Canada. I know my sister bought one. A lot of people bought one. And I said that this was a waste of time. It was selling at $1,800. So I've got these pieces. They actually come from the site, from the rock where the UFO landed, $125, but they don't glow in the dark. So a lot of people are picking up rocks. Here we were going into the site. This is our UFO posse. I've got my cowboy toque on there, and we headed in by horseback in 40 minutes off from the ranch. And here's Desta Barnaby. She did filming with the other camera. I'm just using my cell phone here, but she did some filming. She will put it on the internet. Along with this, this is the Carmen case. This is Bob Diemert, and he actually tells a story there where James Irwin from Apollo 15 comes to him. And here's the rock where Stephen McNabb was sitting when the incident occurred. Now here's the video going in here to the site. We're off the horses now. And this is the rock, and the UFO landed about 50 yards away from this rock.
Yeah, May 20th, 1967, this encounter happened to a guy named Stefan Mahalik. Polish.
This is the craft that landed. The door opened, if you know the story, and he stuck his head in there. He was talking to them in different languages, he thought it was the Americans. Here's the actual rock where this thing landed. And the audio isn't very good to start, but it sort of picks up. And this is Devin Imre, who runs the ranch, and he was giving us a...
This way, basically there's a little cliff here that he marked, the water out this way, and he said this UFO landed on the rock, basically where those shrubs are there, not down in the swamp, wet all the time. And picture this of the craft, I think this is a sketch. So it was quite large, 35 to 40 feet across, and 10 or more feet high. So it would have sort of filled the whole end of the rock here. And he said when he walked out here, you can see this door was open in the side of it, and there was really bright light streaming out, and so bright you couldn't look directly at it. And put down his safety goggles that he had on to try to walk over and see inside. And he said he walked to the entrance, but I tried to look inside, but it was just too bright to see in. But he did describe the thickness of the walls as being almost 2 feet thick, and the surface of it was smooth without any rivets or anything like that. And then he touched the side of it with his glove while he was standing at the door, and it melted the fingers of his rubberized glove, which was later found here by the authorities. And then he said the door slid closed, like almost the lens of a camera, and the whole craft rotated, and he was facing this vent or grate of some kind on the side. And then it suddenly blasted out this hot exhaust or some sort of substance that it hit him in the chest, this exhaust, and started his clothing on fire and burned through, again, a light shirt and a light jacket, burned this pattern of circles through that clothing into his stomach, and he had second-degree burns on his neck and chest where his shirt was open at the top. And that sort of knocked him back, and as he was peeling off these smoldering layers of clothing, he said the craft sort of tilted and took off into the air. And that was the last he saw of it. Basically, from that point, he was in pain, and he said he started to feel sick right away, and was nauseous, and had this severe headache, and he just sort of left his stuff strewn about here and tried to get back to the highway as quick as he could. Those days, like today, you can tell the highway is somewhere over there. You can hear it. And so he made his way back, and a police officer found him. The police report, I think, is on the next page from the officer that found him at 3 o'clock that afternoon. So it took him roughly 2.5, 3 hours to get out of here. And kind of staggering along the highway, and told the story to the officer, and kind of charred marks on his clothing. And at that point, he was thinking in his mind that he must have been exposed to radiation, and kind of explained the symptoms that he had to himself. So he kind of declined the officer's offer for a ride, and just walked back to town. He did ask for medical help, but there was no doctor or ambulance here at that time of year in those days. And so he just called his family, told them he had an accident, and to take him to the hospital. And he got home that night, and he sort of waited around outdoors of the hotel until his bus came that evening. His family took him physically to the hospital. And they treated his burns and basically just sent him home with some cream for his burns and painkillers. But then he got really sick at home and stayed home sick, basically in bed for 2 or 3 weeks or more, and lost a ton of weight. He couldn't eat. His son Stan said that in the book that he's written since then, and various interviews and stuff, that this bizarre smell, like almost like burnt electrical wiring, sulfur type smell, was like coming from his dad's body. It was like emitting this smell, and just like the whole room would smell like it where he was. And that was bizarre and different.
So just to reiterate, this was happened in 1967. They talked about radiation, but it was sort of determined it was maybe not radiation. It was some bizarre thing. These burns that were on his body would disappear, then come back again. This went on for a number of years. He was the Mayo Clinic. Blue Book went in there, and there we actually tried to track down some of the people that were talking that the military was in there immediately when this happened, crisscrossing the area, U.S. military, Canadian RCMP and stuff. So that's one of the cases that Rob and Mark were doing. And now here's more professional. This is Mark's teaser for the trailer to a movie. And Rob and Mark have been around the world, 14 different countries with their cameras and trying to document the UFO story. So here's the trailer that, or the teaser that Mark has put out, which is pretty good.
It had to be something to do with UFOs or something, the way the lights were, how they darted. It was so dark and so quiet. I think I even remember hearing the whooshing, the swishing sound.
When I had my 75 sighting, I knew this happened. And I'm so excited because in our travels over the last 5 years, we've never actually been to a real authentic landing site. Yeah. So we're going to stand on the ground where an actual craft touched the ground.
And where there was an encounter where the guy actually sticks his head inside the craft. He's looking around inside the craft to see where these voices are coming from.
And we just stood there on the road, and it came right up and went right by us. It was below the level of the trees. Wasn't going fast, maybe 60 miles an hour at the most. And they got right in front of us and hopped over the trees, went around Carmen and gone.
This wasn't even random. It's almost like they wanted me out there. Like I didn't go the first time when it started, and then I went out because this film had been taken, and I started to see the whole UFO phenomenon different.
Okay, so Mark and Rob, are you there? And can we sort of maybe do a little discussion and maybe take some questions on this?
Sure. So Grant, first of all, thanks for having us on. And I want to say we had a wonderful time with you and Desta, Mark, myself, and Wendy, and we would do it again in a heartbeat.
Beautiful. Yeah, it was, we actually did some interviews. We'll put the full interview of the Falcon Lake, because Desta was taping that. She was also did the tape of Bob Diemert, especially when he tells the story of the Apollo 15 astronaut coming up to his hangar and telling him this story about the incident that happened on the moon. And we also have some interviews with you, and we go into some of your background and how you got involved in this thing and some of the incredible work, non-UFO work that you're doing. So we'll put that stuff up on our Facebook. But when do you figure this documentary will make it out? And
okay, so of course, you know, the COVID thing has really messed up the year. We did have other expeditions planned this year for Argentina and Bolivia and other places in the world, but that was all canceled. And we did manage to salvage the year and went to 3 places in Canada. And we're so happy we did, you know, uncovering all this history in Manitoba with you. We were out in BC, and then we were here in Ontario. I'm going to turn it over to Mark because he's been dealing with the distributors, and he's got more to say around when it will actually come out.
We do have a production partner, Grant, in Toronto, Frantic Films. They produce a lot of factual documentary material. They've been working with us for just over a year. They've seen the work we did in British Columbia. They've seen the work we've done in Manitoba. They're very excited. They're talking to different streaming services. There's a streaming service that was just in kind of its big kickstart in the last year called Curiosity Stream. Has 15 million subscribers. It was kickstarted by a gentleman who was a figurehead for the Discovery Channel. We've been in talks with them. They're very excited about our material, but as Rob mentioned, you know, COVID kind of slows it down. We had after 5 years, I mean, it's such a privilege to be out there, and we did actually have a TV series project that was completely on the table. As Rob mentioned, we would go to Argentina and Bolivia, etc. COVID hit, which meant that the actual series itself couldn't go into production. They were excited about it, so were we, but you roll with the punches. So we really appreciated you and Desta opening up your doors to us and allowing us to come in and do that production, because it's made everyone at Frantic say, you have a lot of material. You have a lot of great material that you've amassed over the last several years. It's time to take it into the editing bay and create a series of episodes or 2 documentaries. We have North America and South America, basically, which will allow us to get all that material out in the first part of 2021.
Can I ask a question about, they're talking, James Fox was talking about getting this thing to the public. And we had an incident we were at, we were looking at the spook lights at, now the town is escaping me, Woodridge. And can you tell the story about the, when we get reported because we're too close to the train tracks, and the CN police or the train reports us to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the federal police officer. Can you tell the story about what happens when he comes to investigate this call complaining about us?
Well, it was an interesting night, Grant. I remember that. It was a very interesting night. We were too close. We can say that. We were too close to the train tracks that night. Well, you know, we have a special video coming out from Halloween weekend that we're calling it the Woodridge Encounter, because we did have some strange things happen that night. That and one of the things that wasn't strange, but it's definitely spooky, was suddenly the lights coming on in the driveway there, or the pathway, and the police showing up. And but the best part about the police showing up was he instantly engaged with you and Rob and started telling stories. You know, lights. He knew what had happened. We recorded all of that, and that'll come out in the documentary as well as other videos that we're doing. But it was pretty amazing to hear him know completely about it and how the entire area is very aware. They call it the Halloween UFO phenomenon. That's what they call it. I've seen that online a lot. You know, is it UFO? Is it paranormal? That's up to the, I think that'd be up to the person experiencing it. But Rob, if you want to weigh in on what you did end up filming the second night we went out there.
Well, sure. And it was interesting. I'll get back to that first night, Grant, because the officer didn't expect to be there for more than 5 or 10 minutes. And I think, you know, he was an Indigenous officer, quite knowledgeable and quite a great guy. He was there for over an hour and a half, and we kept hearing his superior calling on the radio to see if he was okay. And of course, he told us all about his son was interested in this subject, and he really got into stories that the Indigenous people have connected with. So we learned as much from him as he did about us. But, you know, the second night, you and Desta weren't able to be there, but we went on the other side of the track, and we had one thing after the other happen. There was anomalous things happening with the equipment. We did see some lights that we caught in the time lapse. We caught in the night vision. And while we can't say 100% they were the Woodridge lights, it's pretty interesting. And I think, Mark, is that what you're going to show in this little Halloween video?
We're going to have two-part video come out on October 31st. Will be the one. And then we're actually going to have the more official one as well. It'll come out the following Saturday. That's on Rob UFO World Explorer, the YouTube channel. It'll be on Facebook, and we'll make sure, Grant, you have all the links, and you can post it on your page as well. But oh yeah, the car was turning itself off, and all kinds of very different things happening that night.
Yeah, I remember the police.
Once again, Grant, you know, it's lights in the sky that attract us to this phenomenon. But, you know, in our case, traveling around the world, probably 75% of what goes on is all around us in this, what we call cool high strangeness. And it's like many people will go out and they'll just ignore all that. They'll say, oh, I'm having trouble with my camera. Another person will say the same thing. You know, everybody in the group will have trouble with the camera, but the group will just ignore it. Well, wait a minute, that is all part of the phenomenon. So you know, I think you were with us when we had various different troubles with the camera and people's batteries going dead and stuff. Like, it's, people really have to pay attention to not just the sky, but all around them. And I'm sure, Melinda, on your tours, you probably could speak for 2 hours on that subject.
Yeah. I remember the police officer, because you were mentioning this thing where they kept calling him because they wondered, like, where is this guy? Like, because he went up, he was by himself, and he would just say 30 more minutes. 30 minutes. and he would ask questions.
Well, yeah, and I guess personally, we didn't think it was a good idea. They were sending a guy all by himself out to meet us on this train track crossing that's in the middle of the woods, a mile back from the main road. But they did, and I think maybe they were worried that he got abducted or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Tell a little bit about your camera array, because you can see it in the background there. You spent a lot of money on camera equipment. You had a sighting when you were a young boy with 100 UFOs, and you're obsessed with this.
Yeah, when I was a young boy, I was in Scouts. I was coming out of Scouts, and the kids that were playing in the street, this was Sarnia, Ontario in 1966. This was in that big flap that mainly happened in Michigan at the time, you know, where I think it was the Hillsdale School had a landing. They sent J. Allen Hynek to Michigan. So it was in that same period, I happened to see a light moving back and forth at about 800 feet in the sky. So, you know, bottom line on that one was nobody believed me, but the next day it was in the paper, and over 200 people from our area had seen it. And of course, they had interviewed police officers. On the American side, the Selfridge Air Force Base, just down the way from Port Huron, maybe 25 miles south of Port Huron, they'd sent up 2 jet fighters after this thing, and they couldn't catch it. It left them in the dust. And the other part of this is, you know, I hate to fan conspiracies. I'm, you know, don't like to do that. But years later, I guess maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I went back to the library in Sarnia, where I was born and raised, where I saw that, and to get the microfilm of the newspaper. It was on the front page of the newspaper. And oddly enough, page 2 was missing. And I asked the librarian, is this common? And she said, no, all the pages of every newspaper are microfilmed and they're posted, and that's it. So she couldn't explain why page 2 was missing. Page 2 is where they got into all the juicy details, and they named names of the people at the Air Force Base who made their personal comments, who were basically saying that this was credible. So somehow it got expunged from the microfilm. I went further than that, Grant, and called all the different libraries around Canada, and every single one that had that microfilm, page 2 was gone. So that was interesting too. And then 2 weeks later, a friend of mine from across the road went up on my roof because he said, you know, I would like to see a UFO too. And we saw hundreds go across the sky, literally in a second and a half or a second, from the north all the way to the south, right across in a second. And then 30 seconds later, the whole flotilla all the way back again. And it was, you know, fast forwarding to just 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I guess, you know, Mark and I had been doing films together, and the stories of the UFO came up in between sets. And I told him these stories, or told everybody in the group these stories. Mark went back and did research for several months. He came back to me and said, Rob, we're going to go around the world. And I said, and do what? And he says, we're going to go and see UFOs. We're going to document them. We're going to call them in. And I said, what? I laughed. I said, what do you mean call them in? He said, what you young boys did on that roof was you had the intent to call them in, and you actually did that. And that was the first that I even made that connection, you know, in 50 years. And of course, we have been around to 14 countries. We have, you know, on occasion, we've called things in, and we even had what we believe was an experience with a being in Australia. So it's been a fantastic 5 years. We've been to over 14 countries. We are also doing the same thing. We're trying to document our experience in the field, and we're trying to pass this on to the next generation because, you know, as they get into disclosure, everything that everybody in this group chat is doing, that will all become history. And people are going to look back and say, well, how did it all happen? How, you know, it's commonly known that they come and visited us. We have these packs with them, everything else. But we are going through a very interesting time right now. And it's important that it's documented how the transition happened from, first of all, being covered up and the public lied to entirely, to, you know, when disclosure actually happens and it becomes well known, and, you know, governments have agreements with extraterrestrials and it's not a big deal. Earth continues to move along and the peoples move along, and there's interaction between extraterrestrials and the Earth people. So we're very fortunate to live in this time period that we're living in right now, and we're so excited to be out there. We really feel like we're, you know, like a horse biting its bit, ready to get going. We're being held back right now with COVID, because usually we're out, I would say, about, anywhere between 6 and 8 different expeditions a year, probably closer to 8. So, you know, we're hoping that maybe by the summer of next year, we'll be back on the horse again and can get out there and, you know, experience all the things we experience.
You left out the part when you asked Mark who was going to pay for it.
Yeah, I said, who's going to pay for this? And he says, you are. And, but, you know, I wouldn't trade this for anything, Grant. I honestly wouldn't. And, you know, the best part of all of this is meeting people like you and Desta. You know, I've met Melinda, I believe, at a conference, at Paula's conference. I met you there, and various people. I mean, to me, that's the best part of all, is the fascinating people you meet, the stories you hear, going out in the field and sharing experiences with them. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Well, I appreciate that you've. Sorry to cut you off, Mark.
No, that's okay. It's just such a privilege to meet everyone that's on the panel today. Like this, like the Woodstock of, you know, of connecting to people and seeing people from all over the world. So we can't thank you enough for the invitation.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are out there doing it. And I appreciate Rob has some money, and we actually go through the story of where he got his money from, and that he's put his money where his mouth is, and has helped the UFO community greatly in terms of what he's doing. So anything I can do to support you, and anybody who's got a site, I think you guys are always open to sites where they're hot sites where you'll go in there with your cameras and try to pick stuff up. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. We really, really want to hook up with people who have experienced, like yourself. You had fantastic experiences with Charlie Red Star. So I can't tell you how great of an opportunity it was to spend with you, time with you and Desta over the, gosh, I think it was close to 10 days or 11 days.
Yeah.
But in general, we try to hook up with experiencers, credible experiencers. Mark has gotten very good at, how would I put, screening the people that come to us, because, you know, unfortunately this field does, you know, attract a lot of other kinds of people, but we got to believe the people that we ultimately go out in the field with, it's, you know, close to 100% credible, if not 100% credible people. You never really know for sure, but we're just so excited to be doing that.
I think we have a couple questions, Jay, and then Melinda, maybe.
I just really wanted to just quickly say, because Rob, I did send you an email a while back. You might not have remembered, but I shot you an email saying that I'd love to have you and also have Mark on the channel as well at some point to go over your research. Because you know, I haven't paid. I'll be honest, I haven't paid extremely close attention to what you've been doing, but I do know of you, and I remember one of the first things that I saw of you was actually your interactions at ESETI Ranch with James Gilliand. And I just like, that seems like such a magical place. At some point I want to do a pilgrimage and you know, and get there. But yeah, I would love to have you on the channel. I'm an experiencer myself. I'd love to tell you my story at some point. And yeah, if you guys are down for that, then you're welcome to come onto the Project Unity channel.
Yes, absolutely. Let's hook up, Jay. Yes, we did start an email there, and unfortunately, I have a lot of trouble with my trash bin, or my, what would I call it? What's the bin called where
Junk
emails
still
email.
Go?
The spam.
Spam, yeah, spam, junk, yeah.
And so quite often there'll be email replies that I don't get. And I'm thinking like, what happened to that person? So I will go rummaging through and we'll pick up where we left off for sure.
Awesome. Awesome.
Just to add to that, Rob, can you tell them in terms of the amount of material that you're handling in your computer, how much footage do you film a night in terms of gigabytes?
Oh gosh. I believe it's in the neighborhood of 330 gigabytes per night. Like,
He's running around Winnipeg looking for hard drives.
There's 9 cameras and 8 of them are video. And so, and they're in, you know, some of them are in 4K. So you can imagine the amount of gigabytes or, you know, megabytes it generates. And then it's, you know, the storage isn't the problem. It's looking through all this stuff after. Because what we try to do is, as we go through the night and things happen, we will mark that down. And then we go back into the footage for each camera and compare. For example, we were in Mount Shasta. And Mark, you'll remember this one. Wendy Gallant was there as well. We were with Costa in the group, Costa Macraeus. And it was a quiet meditation, Grant. It was in a quiet part. We were standing around the circle and I heard a voice. But it was coming from outside the group, which I estimated to be about 10 to 15 feet away. You know, when you turn your head as somebody's talking, you can estimate how far it is away with 2 ears, the stereo. And I immediately took my phone out and I just did a screenshot of the time. I didn't want to disrupt our the group. We were in quiet meditation, so I just took note of the time. I went back into the videos, and sure enough, they picked up the sound. And nobody was talking around the group. It was, and you know, I think it was, you know, Paula talks about Avica and Terrell, as well as Ricardo. And we asked Dan of our group, Dan Berg, we played it to him. I increased the volume of it quite a bit. And we said, what are they saying? It's a man's voice. It's in a monotone voice. And I said, Dan, what are they saying? And he said, they're saying Avica. Now, Dan at that point had no idea all the stories behind Avica and Terrell. He didn't know any of that at that time. So here's a guy that just heard the audio for the first time, and he said, they're saying Avica. Now, was that Avica and Terrell, you know, ET beings there? Don't know. All I know is that there was nobody standing outside our group, and the video recorders picked up the voice, and it sounded like they were saying Avica, the famous Avica.
It's an amazing setup. I know we were in Falcon Lake, and we had that one object, which in the morning when you showed me some of the other footage that we had, looked more like a natural phenomena than but when we were looking at it, you know, most people will be looking at the UFO, and all of us were sitting there looking at the screens on the camera, because you have all these screens and nobody's even looking at the object. They're just looking at, because you got the infrared and you can see it in all these different viewpoints, and it's incredible. And people don't realize the amount of work, because I know we'd all go to bed and you'd be up in the middle of the night looking at all these you know, different footages from the different cameras of different things. So I appreciate the work you've done there and the amount of material that you've actually filmed and how in depth it is, where when you have a UFO sighting, you're filming it from 9 different perspectives. Plus you're walking around with an audio recorder taped to your arm, which picks up all this audio. And people don't realize it takes you like an hour to set this whole thing up, to set up all the cameras and focus them and stuff like that. It's an amazing array that you've got there.
It is. Thanks, Grant. And you know, it's kind of like people say, how can you go through all that work every time? But it's a work of passion. And when you are doing something that you're passionate about, it's not work. It's not work. And you know, as you say, there are 9 cameras, and there's all different kinds of cameras. There's infrared, there's thermal, there's full spectrum, there's visible. You've got zoom and wide angle night vision. So, you know, one of the cameras is going to pick it up. We have picked up stuff, for example, on the thermal camera only. We were out over the English Channel in Wales. Mark will remember that. And all the visible cameras picked up nothing. But the thermal camera, which works on heat, picked up the image going across the sky. And when I really, on the computer later zoomed in on it, it was the bottom of this object that was hot. Because you can have black as hot or white as hot. You can reverse the polarity of the camera. So I was running it as black as hot, and it was the bottom that was hot. Now, that was something notable, because if this object was, say, a plane going through the air and the sun is shining on it from above, the top would be hot. Why was the bottom hot? Was it emitting some kind of heat? Like that was the signature? Don't know. All I know is that, this camera array has turned into, we call it the WMD, weapon of mass detection, but it has turned into the weapon of mass debunction. And many times we'll go with people who claim to see things, but when you really zoom in with all this equipment, it's very disappointing, but then you can really see that it's not a craft. It is a known object. It's a satellite. It's a rocket body rotating. It's a shooting star. It's a flare. So on one hand, it's exciting that we've got all this high-tech equipment, but it really, really distills down what is authentic. Like most of the stuff that we see is proven with this equipment to just be benign stuff. But what we're really excited about is that, that 5% that everybody talks about, that is authentic. So the number of actual captures we get that are real are few and far between. But when we get them, they're terrific, like the Squamish Orb, like the Cusco craft, some of those things.
Beautiful. Melinda, you had something you want to ask?
Yeah, I see in the images, you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Since before, I'm cautious. Okay. I saw the images there playing behind Mark with like night vision. Is that just a night vision video camera that you guys are using? Because I would say, just from my experience of 1,244 tours now, is use night vision goggles. It'll help you find stuff and then where to direct the cameras. Are you guys having people with night vision goggles searching the sky for you?
On my array of cameras, everything's lined up, and it takes quite a bit of time to get it lined up, as Grant can attest to. Basically, there's the green night vision in wide, and so that has quite a wide angle. So I use that to find things in the sky. On the same rack is night vision zoom. So it's like 8 times zoom, and you have all the other cameras. So it starts out like this, Melinda. If something is seen in the sky, whether it's a flashing light, a light slowly coming on and off, you can see it in the wide angle night vision. It's like a night vision scope. It's like what people have out there in the field, right? And it is Gen 3 stuff. Once you see that, I put the object in the middle of that screen. Then I go to my zoom night vision, and I make sure it's in the center of that screen. So that's something that's zoomed in big time now. And if it's in the center of that screen, it will be in the center of all the other telephoto cameras, including the visible video, the telephoto thermal camera. All the cameras will have it there. So I start wide, and I just, get closer and closer as I get to the object with the zoom, with the bigger zoom stuff, and then I will be able to film it that way.
Well, I certainly applaud you guys for all the efforts to get stuff on film and going to places that are hot spots and going out with people with contact experiences who can call them in and whatnot. But from my experience doing the tours, which is a lot, like I said, 1,244, is you got to be looking all directions, really. You got to have some night vision goggles out there with you guys. When you're filming at night, of course, daytime's totally different. But any nighttime filming, you got to have people who are looking all directions, because you could have your camera set direction and all the action's going on behind you. you know, and so when we get like formations of objects and everywhere, you got to find them. You got to have people searching the sky, more than one pair. I mean, in my tour, we get like, you know, 8 pairs going at once. You've got to search the whole sky because it could be happening anywhere. And so I'm just saying, I applaud your guys's efforts and the filming of them. So that's what I was going to offer up, is just to say, get some night vision goggles out there with you so you won't miss the stuff behind you. You'll learn how to pick up your equipment and refocus it, or develop something that makes it swivel, or get a big turntable or something, because the action could be happening behind you. That is often the case on my tours. We're looking at one thing and someone says, oh, look at that, and the formation's behind us, you know. So I'm just saying, by doing that, it'll increase your ability to find stuff and increase what you're catching on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what I forgot to mention is I do have one extra night vision, but it would be good to invest in more night vision cameras. You know, I'm saying just goggles for people to find the stuff. Then you can turn the cameras on it. The few times I've had people come out on my tours with cameras, we find it with the goggles and then they know where to look. Yeah. You know, I'm just saying, from a lot of experience, it'll really help you.
Melinda,
because I want to support what you're doing. You know?
Melinda, have you got any links? Because this is something I asked you when we did our interview the other day, because I really want to have a link to some of the footage that you guys.
Yeah, I provided you some, but it was actual clips and everything. I'm going to need to find the person who originally put those on.
Yeah, you could definitely set up a website or a YouTube channel or something where you can get this footage out, because if you've got, like, obviously you've done so many tours, like I think that, you know, an archive would be a sensible.
Well, no, there's only been like 3 times anyone's ever filmed anything. And yeah, where we've caught anything, you know, worthwhile. It's very hard to catch it on camera. Granted, the majority of what we're seeing is very, very far away, the formations and whatnot. And yes, we have got good footage, like 3 times. And one gentleman who had a high-powered telephoto lens on a still camera on a tripod caught a great image that he promised 1 million times he'd send to me. He never did. Well, now I don't even remember his name, because that was like 5 years ago. And if I could remember when he went out and figure out his name, I'd contact him. But that would just be a still photo of a large structured craft. But all the other things have been predominantly lights at high altitude, but formations, things stopping and turning, things shooting off, etc. And but we do have some footage of that. The best piece of footage that I have is a tour I led where a guy had black and white night vision video camera, very grainy, like generation 2, you know, really grainy, or even Gen 1, you know, but black and white night vision. And we filmed an F-18 fighter jet chasing a U-shaped UFO. Unfortunately, it's so grainy you don't see that's you, but we had quite a few people. It was a large tour group. Some other people brought night vision, so we had like 30 pairs of night vision out there with this rather large group. Everyone looking through the night vision saw that it was clearly a U-shape object, you know, big, you know, U-shape. But unfortunately, the camera is so grainy. What you see are 2 big lights right next to each other. Well, on the ends of the U, we're lit up bright red. Well, in black and white night vision, it's 2 white lights next to each other, but you clearly see the F-18 chasing it. So I'll provide you that footage. But anyways, I don't want to go on about my stuff. I'm just saying, guys, I want to encourage what you're doing, and I want to see you guys get great results. You have all that beautiful camera stuff. Let's maximize its ability by getting you out there with some night vision. So you're looking all directions, and people finding it. Hit it with a laser. I use, 500 milliwatt green. Hit it with a laser. You can turn the cameras. You know right where to get it. That'll increase your chances. It's like I'm doing stuff with night vision and science. You're doing stuff with cameras. We need to have a meeting of, between us, like where I'm bringing out some more people with cameras. I don't have the time, the energy. I'm so involved with my clients who are, pardon me if any of my clients are watching this, but needy attention wise, that I can't be fiddling with a bunch of cameras and everything. But I encourage people, if they're coming on my tour, to bring that. And I just want to help you guys, because you are doing all the great camera stuff. Well, let's get multiple night vision goggles out there so you're finding the stuff, and it'll increase what you're doing. So that's all.
Melinda, I really like that idea. I know you and I talked when we were in Laughlin about getting together. Now that we've talked again on in Grant's call here, I think we should go to the next step and put all this equipment that we've got with all the eyes and all the people with night vision that you've got and put on a specific expedition. We'll
Sure.
come into your area as soon as traveling is allowed again. And I think we'll put on, Mark, we could go down there for a week. And I don't know whether you'd have the same people come out every night or whether it's different people.
No, it's always different. My clients are different every night. It's tourists coming into Sedona. So, I mean, I've had over 8,500 people, like well over.
Okay. So I think we should put something together. You know, this is a fantastic idea. I think with all your people, with all the eyes in every different direction, you know, and typically with us, it's just a handful of people. It's Mark and I, and then we'll have just a few other people. In your case, you've got a lot of people. So why don't we?
Well, no. Normally on my tours, it's not. No, I don't have a lot of people. That was a one specific rare event that had like 60 people at it. Normally on my tours, it's like 5 to 10 people max. You know.
Okay. Well, nevertheless, let's get together. We'll put you on the slate for next year, assuming that travel is going to be allowed again, and let's do it.
Yeah, I'd love for you guys to come out here.
Rob, can I ask a question to Rob? Are you able to talk about the app that you designed for To the Stars? Because Melinda may have them coming out to the site. Can you talk about building the app? And this is the other part of technology, is an app that To the Stars is bringing out, which you can actually sort of determine immediately from the app whether there's any planes or this kind of stuff in the area. Can you talk about the app that you helped them design?
Sure. About 5 years ago or more, I was just with my trainer doing a workout, and I told him the story about what I'd seen as a kid. And I said, you know, there should be an app where if you see something, you can just open it up and start filming. And the app would let other people in the area know. And if the event was still going on, they could go right outside and they could see it. So he said, let's build it. So we did. We hooked up with a software developer out of the States, and we developed it. We called it Project Capture. And we had quite a few thousand users. But what we found is you really have to have hundreds of thousands of users, because the chance of somebody having it on their iPhone who sees something in the sky is pretty small. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll have people that see something but don't have the app. You'll have people that have the app but don't see something. So I was at a conference in Huntsville, Alabama, where Lou Elizondo was speaking, and a couple other guys from To the Stars were there. And I showed him the app. And he said, Rob, I'm going to track you down. We can use this app. So he showed it to Tom DeLonge. He showed it to the others. And we wound up flying, and Mark was out there with us, and my trainer. We went out to Encino, California there, and showed the app, and we made a deal with them. And so they have the app. They have rebranded it. I think they call it Scout.
Scout, yeah.
Yeah, they rebranded it, and they're using AI with it, so that when people post sightings on it, they will use AI to see if it's credible. Now, Grant, you take over from here, because I think you know a little bit more about that end of it than I do.
Yeah.
Let me butt in real quick. I think Peter needs to get scooching. So I just wanted to give him an opportunity to say bye to everybody. And thank you, Peter, for joining us today.
Great to see you, Peter. Been a long time. So good to see you.
Great to see you, Peter.
Okay.
Now he's muted. Bye, Peter. Okay, Grant.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, Lou Elizondo and it was Lou Elizondo and Tom DeLonge did a couple of, they've got the TTSA Talks podcast, and they talk about the apps in terms of putting everything in it. So they're using a lot of AI where they can do stress analysis on voices and photographic analysis as they're putting this material in. And there was one funny thing where they're putting in a lot of data from different platforms and stuff. And so I think it was Tom DeLong asked Lou Elizondo, well, maybe we can get the classified stuff that's to put it in the app as well, so that it builds the base. And that's when I think Lou Elizondo says, Tom, stuff goes up, it doesn't come down. So they are building this app with all this high tech, trying to log everything into the app. So you have a massive thing. And there was even, I think Tom DeLong had a sighting on the coast of California. He phoned up Lou Elizondo, and Lou Elizondo just went on the app and he said, there is nothing, whatever it was, within 40 miles of you. You could tell exactly what was in the area based upon all the material that had been put in the app. So it's using a lot of high-end AI platforms that put all this material in one spot.
Grant, you know what? They want to integrate like all historical sightings into this app. They want to put as much stuff as they can so that when there's something happening, right away, other people in the area can be alerted, and it can be, I guess, judged right away to see how credible it is.
Yeah.
Based on all the other things that are happening in there, like, okay, is there a jet going over right now? You know, with flight aware, is there a military exercise happening? They want to incorporate all of this into the app.
Do we know when?
This sounds. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Jay. Sorry.
Melinda, there's a little bit of latency. I didn't know. Yeah. Do you want to? Okay.
Go ahead, Jay. You go first.
Say, do we know anything about when this might be coming out? Because SkyHub looks like it might be kind of taking the lead in terms of bringing AI, computer learning, data analysis of UAPs to the forefront. It looks like SkyHub is leading the forefront on that right now.
I honestly don't know, because I've turned the app over to them.
Right.
They're working with it, so I don't know. You know, what might be not a bad idea is the guys that are involved with SkyHub to track down Lou and maybe get together and incorporate that all together.
I can help put that connection together. I've been thinking about that anyways. I've been thinking to, you know, talking to Jim and have him talk to Bob McGuire.
Yeah, McGuire was supposed to be here today. He could have covered this base.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking all that as these guys were talking. So Jay, that was, you exactly brought up exactly what I was just going to bring up, which is SkyHub, and you know, it's like, okay, we got Scout going on, we got SkyHub, we need to like bring these things together and have a more cohesive. This has always been, you know, a problem in the UFO community, this cohesive working together. Everybody's doing separate stuff. There isn't that, with the exception of some organizations like, you know, MUFON or something, who are just doing their own thing. But I'd like to see something like that, you know, come together. And since I know Jim and I know Bob McGuire, maybe I can help with that.
Well, this is a great time. I mean, like, you know, when have we ever been able to have something so advanced like AI software and this type of advanced learning software that can literally process all of these different things and target it towards looking for UFOs? I mean, this is incredible that we've not only got one but two endeavors already underway, and probably more of them that we just don't know about yet. So a collaboration between these two would be awesome.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
This goes to an interview. If you followed the whole Wilson leak thing, Will Miller, who was the military advisor to Stephen Greer, actually does a very long interview with Stephen Greer where he talks about going to the Pentagon and talking to Admiral Wilson and all this sort of stuff. But part of that, the most dramatic part of that interview, is he talks about a tour that he got of the NORAD headquarters, and where he's looking at the panel board. And they push a button and it has all the planes in the United States on this panel board. Push this button. And then I think he said button 54 was UFOs. And he said, push that button. And the guy pushes the button and it said, unauthorized access or something. But that's the idea, is that you have all this stuff loaded into one thing, so that you have this ability to pick up exactly what's going on in the area, rather than trying to figure out, you know, what's a plane, what's a star, and all this kind of stuff. It does that all for you.
Mm-hmm. I know another app that we haven't mentioned in the last few minutes is Dr. Greer's CE5 app that you can get on your phones and tablets these days. It's relatively cheap, but it has kind of a locator in it where you can find other people who are practicing CE5 and sky watching. So if you want to network with people that are close to you on any certain night, that could also be utilized with all this other high-tech camera systems and detection devices that we have going on. I think all of us who've been in the field just want to buy it all and plunk it in our front yard and just wait.
Going back to Mark and Bob, are you still incorporating with what you're doing, using the Scout program or whatever your version was? Are you still using that? And if not, I would say at least we should put you guys in touch with Bob McGuire and the folks with SkyHub, because I think you guys should use the SkyHub equipment also in conjunction with what you're doing.
Yeah, by all means, Melinda, hook us up, and I can get involved with SkyHub, and I will also try to open the door over to Lou Elizondo as well. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's unfortunate Bob McGuire isn't here with us today, because it'd already be happening then, you know.
There you go. We solved the problem already.
There you go. And
Rob, I have one final question for you, or one of the final questions. I think we're coming up on our time here. You said that you recently have kind of accepted that, or you've realized that you are calling in these craft, or maybe you have more to do with the sightings than you have previously thought. Has that inspired you to try different contact modalities, like maybe the CE5, or, you know, just meditating with intent? Or my favorite is I like to dance. The phenomenon likes me to dance as well. So, and it's all about
tried that on a tour yet,
vibration.
Nicole. I'll have to try dancing.
Hey, Grant has a couple of my vibration raising videos, and he promises me they're in the vault. So
we were at St. Malo and nothing was happening. I contacted Nicole and she offered to come up there and dance, but she didn't come up.
I did. But yes, Rob, what are some of the things as an experiencer that you're trying?
Yeah, the answer to the question is all of the above. We've used every and all technique that's out there, and including meditation, and including, we came across another interesting thing. It's seeing without eyes. And Grant's been quite interested in this as well. My good friend and experiencer, Leonie Applet from Australia, when we had got back from our expedition there, she sent me a video of her granddaughters with masks on, running around the yard, playing games and seeing. And I thought, oh, Leonie's just playing with me. This is all bogus. She's just having some fun. And I wrote back to her and I said, is this for real? And she said it was. And 1 second, while I plug my computer in, I'm getting the little red light saying it's about to die with the battery. 1 second.
Uh-oh.
Hey, that's duly noted high strangeness. The battery starts draining on equipment.
Rob, we had the opportunity to be with Ricardo Gonzalez, you know, Sixto Paz Wells, these, you know, so in different people, like different shamanistic people, like in Australia and things like that. So we feel pretty fortunate that we've learned a lot of things. It's like a mixed bag of different ways of connecting, and it's not easy though. You know, meditation is a very difficult, well, it's not difficult, but it's a challenging process. So, but Rob will continue with his thought about the blindfolds.
Yeah, so to wrap it up real quickly, Leonie said it was legitimate. She knew of a lady in Ottawa that was teaching that. Marcus, Liz, and my friend Wendy, we all went to Ottawa. We learned a little bit that weekend. Some of us could do it a little bit, some of us couldn't. Over the months that followed, Wendy and I continued with it. We experimented, and we found that yes, you can see blindfolded. You can see in real time. It's almost like remote viewing in real time. And I got tons of videos on the internet. If you look under Wendy Gallant, Seeing Blindfolded, you can see our videos. And, you know, as an older person, it's a little more difficult. Young children can see with their blindfold on, just like we're seeing right now. It's absolutely 100% legit. Anyway, my motivation for learning that was I felt that it would help me contact the ETs. It would help me tune in to telepathy. It would help me tune in to know where they're going to be, to see where they are in the sky. Even with this ability, you can have Zoom vision. For example, Wendy, when she's reading things blindfolded, she can have it, the character on the page can zoom in 10 times the size. So can you imagine looking up in the sky and seeing a dot and being able to zoom in with your vision and seeing it? So we're going down that, you know, as Grant says, rabbit hole. I just got to believe that it's going to help us in our path of making contact with ETs on an ongoing basis.
Beautiful.
Any other final questions from anyone?
No, I would love to ask Rob real quick. This is actually in regards to Mount Adams. What do you think is going on with Mount Adams and some of those lights that are just popping up all over the rock face?
Well, you know, we filmed it. I don't know if you've seen any of the videos. Mark's done a great job of editing them and putting a little stories together on YouTube. We honestly cannot say 100%. Now, I can tell you that they, we got the stuff with the visible cameras. We got it with night vision, but it does not show up in thermal, either colored thermal or black and white thermal. And so if their bodies, if they're hikers, the heat of their body should have shown up in the thermal. So it's a big question mark. Is it actually hikers? They're not supposed to be up there. They can get heavy fines, I believe, in the area of $5,000 to $20,000. So I don't know. All I can say is we'd like to go back. We'd like to send it, get permission from the parks people and go up there with walkie-talkies and have, you know, my equipment back at James Gilliland's ranch with all the Zoom stuff, be talking back and forth and film and either prove that it's real or debunk it, one or the other.
Well, I hope you get an opportunity to do that, mate, because that's like the things that go on in that ranch and specifically around the mountain are just bizarre. I'd love to know more. So yeah, I do hope you get the chance to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should also have you guys, when you come out here, take some of your equipment and everything, go out to Bradshaw Ranch, which is kind of the Sedona version of Skinwalker Ranch, and very famous for a lot of activity. Local researcher Tom Dongo's written about it in a number of books. But that might be very interesting too, to see what we get out there as well. So obviously if you're going to make a trip to come here to Sedona, Arizona, come for a couple days, and we can do a couple of these things.
We generally, if we're going to spend a week to 10 days, we do pack a lot of different places into it and a lot of people. So Mark and I will work very closely with you over the coming months and we'll put that together.
That'd be wonderful.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I think we can wrap it up now. Grant, was there any last things you would like to say?
No, just thanks. You did a wonderful job moderating, and we'll let you do it from now on.
Yeah,
I'll keep trying my best, you guys. And I think we skipped a month here, but maybe we'll have to set another discussion for after the election. So I think we'll all have plenty to say
I'll
after
give
then.
a minor update. Well, it's actually the fact I don't have an update, but in preparation for the panel, I put in a call to Jim Semivan and left a message, and as well as texted him. I have not heard back. Nice. I was specifically asking, since the bill that passed the Senate went to Congress and on their desk before they broke, and now they're back in the next session, and the intelligence bill, I assume it all got signed because it was supposed to begin fiscal year, which begins October 1st. And then remember, you guys, one of the line items for the UAP task force was that it would have 120 days to report back to the Senate. And so I have a message into Jim saying, okay, did that begin October 1st? Because that's when it was supposed to begin. Obviously, with the Pentagon announcing in the DOD the existence of the UAP task force, which I had asked Jim prior to our last panel to say yes. He said they wouldn't announce it unless they knew Congress was going to sign it, of course, pass it. And of course, the president would then sign it.
Last I heard, it hasn't gone through yet. Last I heard it hasn't gone through.
Well, the thing is, it was supposed to begin with the fiscal year October 1st. And my understanding it was there for them to sign when they got back. So, Danny, who did you hear that from, or how did you hear that?
There's just a lot of people following the story, and I know as soon as it goes through, everyone's going to freak out, and that freak out.
The go through is only the signing by Congress, and by the president. And that could happen. We don't know when they sign the intelligence bill every year, So that it's the whole intelligence bill, which this UAP parts are just a couple of line items. So it could be that they sign the whole intelligence bill and we haven't heard it. So that's the call I have into Jim. I've got other couple sources I might be able to ask if they know anything. But I'm hoping I'll hear back from him to say, okay, because it was supposed to be enacted starting October 1st. So my call into him is, did all that happen? And did it go into action? Now, we're not going to know anything till the public, so they say, report comes back to the Senate and Congress, which is supposed to be 120 days. So if it was still given that time frame, the report is supposed to come back, and that's when we get what is supposed to be public parts. Although there is a lot of information I'm hearing on the internet right now about the concern by everyone, of course, that the majority of that will be in the classified annex session of that report, and that classified annex we will not, see. But we're hoping, of course, I'm sure everybody is, that the majority of the report is made public. So I'm just wondering if everything's on the time frame. I mean, yeah, we're not hearing anything, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen, because we don't hear when the Congress signs or the intelligence signs, or the president signs the intelligence bill. So it could have been signed, because normally that's not a big deal. And these are just a couple line items buried in a giant intelligence bill. So it could just be the whole bill did get signed, or it's on hold. So that's what I'm trying to find out. So as soon as I know, I'll let you guys know. How's that sound?
So as soon as you know and you get it confirmed, call up Nicole. We'll do an interview and we'll scoop Danny Silva on it.
Oh, let's scoop Silva.
We
Tom,
can involve
did you want to say something?
Danny, we could involve you.
So I just want, on Twitter, there's a Twitter person, Doug Johnson. I know him personally, but as recently as a couple of weeks ago, he asserted that the bill had not passed yet and had not gone through completely. And I guess I have a question for everybody that.
Oh, I lost him.
Once it does get signed, which.
Tom, you might want to repeat the question. Lost you for a second then.
Would the reporting be retroactive to October 1st? And that means that's going to mean that.
I lost Tom's audio.
Can you hear me?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, you're breaking up, Tom.
Hello.
Yeah, we're hearing you, but you're occasionally breaking up.
I think you were saying, would it be retroactive? And the number of days is actually 180, and so maybe it would be 180 days from October 1st, maybe.
Okay. Well, that's what I hope to get straightened out by Jim, because
they're gonna, if it's legally due in April, which is 6 months from October, then they're not going to be ready, because they're already 3-4 months behind. It hasn't been signed yet. So I think we're being overly optimistic to think that we're going to get a report
But
as
Tom,
of,
like, yeah.
April 1st or April 30 or whenever.
But
That's all
Tom,
I'm
like I
saying.
did ask Jim before, the reason the Pentagon and the DOD announced the UAP task force is they're already up and doing it. So if they know they have to put this together, the 180 days, it could be they're already working on that to do that, that they started it October 1st. And that it will be, like you said, I don't know, I'll find out from Jim, if it goes into, effect in arrears that way, then in which case the UAP task force is already working on it. So my guess is they're working on it and we're already chipping away at the 180 days. Like I said, I'm going to try to find out if somebody knows that answer.
Okay, so resolve it and phone Nicole.
I will.
All right. Cliffhanger. Sounds good. But I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, and a big thanks to James Fox for coming in, and you, Robert and Mark, for talking about your upcoming film as well. And just to our audience out there listening, I think we at one point had close to 100 people watching, so that was great.
Awesome.
And I will remind all of them that they can find the film streaming on virtually any platform. So if you haven't seen it, go out there and rent it. If you want to bypass the renting phase, just go ahead and buy it. It's worth the $20, and then you can watch it for the rest of your life. So
as far as I'm concerned, it's required viewing. Now, for a lot of us who have been really versed in this subject for, many, many years, I've been in, 30 years, and I know, many of you have, you go to, hey, for us, a lot of the information there we know, but again, this is for the general public, and it is a new, fresh telling with incredible archival footage, like James was saying, for the public. And
hi everybody.
And a very bye and a very powerful statement. So my bottom line there is, this is required viewing. Tell everyone you know to watch this.
Beautiful. Thank you, Melinda. We'll shut her down with that.
Rob,
good night.
Can I make one last announcement?
Yes, you can close us out.
Okay. Next year, as soon as traveling is allowed again.
Thank you, Nicole.
As soon as traveling is allowed again, Mark and I are starting a new program. We're going to be going wherever there is a flap.
Ooh.
In other words, if any of the viewers out there are saying, look, we're getting them every night, get your butt out here right now, we will have everything ready to go to hop on a plane and be there the next day.
Oh, that's great.
So
come to the UK.
Happening, we're ready to go. So I want everybody to know that.
Yeah, excellent. We are ready. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And
thank you, Nicole.
We will see you next
Nicole.
time.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good to see you, Jay.
Yeah, good to see you all as well. Bye.
Yeah, good to see everybody.
Good night.
But it's just an Aussie car, not the take what the actual